Lithuania is a small country at the forefront of NATO's eastern flank, particularly in northeastern Europe. It's a strategically located nation in a quietly tense neighborhood.
Can never feel absolutely safe living in this part of the world because we have this neighbor.
We'll address the following questions. Why does Lithuania matter? What are the security threats to Lithuania? What are NATO allies doing to help deter aggression against and, if necessary, defend Lithuania? What is Lithuania itself doing for its own defense? And we'll examine scenarios for the defense of Lithuania as it holds pivotal ground on NATO's eastern flank. This is Defense Index. If you find you like the content, please like and subscribe. So, why does Lithuania matter? Lithuania has outsized importance for a country with a modest land area of around 65,000 square kilometers or 25,000 square miles, around the size of the southeastern European country of Georgia or the U.S. state of West Virginia, and with a population of 2.9 million, similar to that of other small European countries like Moldova and Armenia, or sparsely populated U.S. states like Kansas or Mississippi. Lithuania, along with Latvia and Estonia, are often collectively referred to as the Baltic States. On a map, the three countries appear stacked on top of each other, with Lithuania being the southernmost and also the largest, both in terms of population and area. Lithuania is strategically located because it's right there on the now infamous Suwalki Gap, that 100-kilometer or 65-mile-long stretch of land which, from NATO's perspective, links Lithuania and through it the other Baltic states of Latvia and Estonia, also fellow allies, to the rest of NATO, via Poland to their south. It's named after a city and a county called Suwalki in northeastern Poland, but the gap, or corridor, has come to refer more broadly also to land across the border in southern Lithuania. Lithuania borders Kaliningrad, to that heavily fortified Russian exclaves north and east. Lithuania also has a 680-kilometer or 420-mile-long border to its east, with staunch Russian ally Belarus. From Russia's perspective, the Suwalki Gap is land and airspace, doesn't control that links Kaliningrad and Belarus. Currently, a train line runs through southern Lithuania, just above the Suwalki Gap, that connects the Russian exclave with Russia's ally. The main alternative supply route is via the Baltic Sea from St. Petersburg in mainland Russia. That's fine in peacetime, but if there's a war, that's not really viable, as that would mean running through an absolute gauntlet as, apart from Russia, all the other countries around the Baltic Sea are NATO allies. Lithuania faces the Baltic Sea via its coast to its west. Lithuania's terrain is mainly flat, although there are hills in its east and part of its western interior. Around a third of the country is covered by forests. Lithuania used to be much larger in centuries past, known as the Grand Duchy of Lithuania from the 13th through the late 18th century, and as part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth from the 16th century through the late 18th century. Lithuania was one of the largest states in Europe. In 1795, the Russian Empire gained control over Lithuania. Into the 20th century, as the communists seized power in Russia, Lithuania declared independence in 1918 and fought off Bolshevik attempts to retake the country. Then, former Commonwealth partners Lithuania and Poland, both newly independent from Russia, fought a war in 1919 to 1920 over a territorial dispute. Lithuania lost Vilnius to Poland for 2 decades, and Kaunas became the Lithuanians' temporary capital. After Stalin attacked Poland in concert with Hitler in 1939, the Soviets returned Vilnius to Lithuania. But a year later, the Soviets turned around to invade Lithuania and made it part of the USSR, ending 22 years of Lithuanian independence in the early 20th century. And then, the year after that, Nazi Germany attacked the Soviet Union, and Lithuania fell to German forces. In 1944, the Nazis were driven away from most of Lithuania, and the Soviet Union reoccupied the country as the Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic. That lasted for 46 years. Lithuania finally regained its independence in 1990, when it became the first to secede from the Soviet Union. A cascade of independence declarations in 1991 eventually led to the dissolution of the USSR, which marks the end of the Cold War. Lithuania, along with fellow former Soviet or Soviet-occupied Baltic republics Latvia and Estonia, and 4 other formerly communist-ruled countries, joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 2004. Lithuania, the other Baltic states, and a number of other countries also became part of the European Union in the same year. Now, what are the security threats to Lithuania? As mentioned earlier, the Suwalki Gap is important to NATO because it connects its allies by land. At the same time, it's important to Russia because it's a crucial link to its exclave Kaliningrad.
Калининград, безусловно, один из важнейших регионов России, наш форпост на западе.
So, what's in Kaliningrad? For centuries, Kaliningrad was part of the German Empire, and the main city was known as Königsberg. At the end of the Second World War, following the defeat of the Nazis, Russia annexed the former German territory in 1945 and renamed it after Soviet leader Mikhail Kalinin. Germans living there were expelled and Russians repopulated the exclave. What Kaliningrad gives Russia is a territory with direct access to the Baltic Sea, with the port of Baltisk ice-free throughout the year. Kaliningrad is surrounded by Lithuania to its north and east, and by Poland to its south. It's separated by over 600 kilometers, or nearly 400 miles, to the main Russian landmass, making it an exclave. Kaliningrad covers an area of just over 15,000 square kilometers, or 5,800 square miles, around the size of the U.S. state of Connecticut. Kaliningrad is a Russian oblast that's home to around 1 million Russian citizens, half of them living in the same named capital city. The port of Baltisk is host to the Russian Navy's Baltic Fleet. Believed to be stationed in Kaliningrad are long-range surface-to-air missile batteries, supersonic anti-ship missiles, and Iskander ballistic missiles. There are also air bases for strike fighters. Nuclear weapons are believed to be stored in Kaliningrad. The Russian ground forces is forming an army corps, expanding upon a division. The Russian Navy has a brigade of naval infantry, or Marines, in Kaliningrad that is being expanded into a division. Russian military personnel in Kaliningrad could be as many as 30,000. Currently, many of these are believed to have been redeployed to the war in Ukraine. If or when that war is over or suspended, it's expected that those Russian units would return to Kaliningrad. Meanwhile, to its east, Lithuania has a 680-kilometer or 420-mile-long border with Belarus, which had allowed its territory to be used as a staging ground for Russian forces in the 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It's generally assumed that if ever Russia hatches a plan to invade the Baltics and/or Poland, Belarus would again allow its territory to be used by Russia. Lithuania and several other NATO allies have also blamed Russia for conducting hybrid warfare, or activities that test or seek to destabilize the alliance's eastern flank without provoking a direct military response. These include cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, interference in elections, and outright sabotage activities such as arson attacks and the cutting of undersea telecommunications cables in the Baltic Sea. Lithuania has been one of the staunchest supporters of Ukraine since the onset of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. The small country has to date sent 1.5 billion euros in aid, including 770 million euros in military assistance to Ukraine. Lithuanian civilians also actively raise funds for projects that support Ukraine. The Baltic countries, including Lithuania, have consistently warned that if Ukraine fails to defend itself, the rest of Europe would be next, with NATO's eastern flank in Russia's sights. Now, what is NATO doing to bolster defenses in its eastern flank, particularly in Lithuania? Russia's initial aggression against Ukraine in this century dates back to 2014 with the seizure and annexation of Crimea. Although Ukraine wasn't and still isn't a NATO member, this aggression against a European country alarmed members on the alliance's eastern flank that shared a border or were in proximity with Russia. In the NATO summit in 2016 in Warsaw, it was agreed to form Enhanced Forward Presence, or EFP, battle groups in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Poland. These battalion-sized units, each with 1,000 troops or more, were drawn from contributing member nations that rotated units for months at a time. In early 2022, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine completely changed the defense situation in Europe. In its 2023 summit in Lithuania's capital Vilnius, as it happened, Plans were approved to further bolster defenses in northeastern Europe, mainly by scaling up existing NATO units stationed in the alliance's eastern flank, including in Lithuania, from battalion-sized battle groups to brigade-sized units, which are around 3 times or more larger. A year earlier, NATO had also agreed to form battle groups on 4 more of its allies, namely Romania and Bulgaria in southeastern Europe, and Hungary and Slovakia in Central Europe. Most recently, in 2025, moves are being taken to establish NATO Forward Land Forces, or FLF, in Finland. As of mid-2025, NATO is apparently switching from using EFP, or Enhanced Forward Presence, to FLF, or Forward Land Forces. Since the establishment of NATO's EFP battle group in Lithuania in 2017, Germany has been the so-called framework nation, or leader, for the multinational force in Lithuania. In December 2023, this was taken to a next step when the defense ministers of Germany and Lithuania signed an agreement for the permanent stationing of a German brigade in Lithuania. The Bundeswehr, or German armed forces, have called this a beacon project in Germany's Zeitenwende, or turning point, in the country's defense policy. It will be the first brigade to be permanently stationed outside Germany since the end of the Second World War in 1945. The 45th Panzer, or Armored Brigade, was officially activated in April 2025. It will start modestly with a few hundred personnel. Then it will continue to grow, and by the end of 2027, the brigade should reach full operating capability as a 5,000-strong unit, to include 4,800 military personnel and 200 civilians. The 45th Armored Brigade will be a heavy maneuver brigade, according to the Bundeswehr. The brigade will be built around a tank battalion and a mechanized infantry battalion. It will later incorporate the multinational NATO battle group in Lithuania as its 3rd combat battalion. The 45th Armored Brigade will be subordinated to the 10th Panzer Division, one of the German Army's 2 current armored divisions. The brigade's tank unit will be the 203rd Panzer Battalion. It will be taken from a brigade of the 1st Panzer Division, and the battalion will relocate to Lithuania from its current base in Augustdorf in western Germany. It is currently equipped with Leopard 2A7 main battle tanks, but the battalion should get 44 of the latest Leopard 2A8 version when new tanks ordered by Germany become available. The mechanized infantry unit, the 122nd Panzer Grenadier Battalion, will be taken from a brigade of the 10th Panzer Division, and the battalion will relocate to Lithuania from Oberwichtach in southeastern Germany. This battalion is equipped with 44 Puma infantry fighting vehicles. The NATO multinational battle group Lithuania is currently attached to Lithuania's Iron Wolf Brigade, but control of the battle group will be transferred to the 45th Armored Brigade by 2026 to become its 3rd combat battalion. New support units are being formed for the 45th Armored Brigade. This includes an artillery battalion that will operate PZH-2000 tracked, self-propelled 155mm howitzers. There will also be a reconnaissance company. Fennec low-profile 4-wheeled vehicles are the German Army's current scout vehicles, but these will be replaced in the near future with a larger, probably 6-wheeled reconnaissance vehicle. The brigade will have an engineer company that specializes in building fortifications, bridging, and counter-mobility operations. And there will be a supply battalion for logistical support and sustainment. We'll have to see if the brigade will add a drone unit as well as counter-UAV systems, and if it would be attached with medium or even long-range air defense systems to deal with a wider range of aerial threats, from hostile aircraft to missile attacks. Where the German-led armored brigade will be located in Lithuania is important both strategically and symbolically. The main base, which will house 4,000 personnel, or 80% of the 45th Armored Brigade, will be in Rūdininkai, in southeastern Lithuania, located 36 kilometers, or 22 miles southwest of the capital Vilnius, and a mere 16 kilometers, or 10 miles, from Lithuania's border with Russian ally Belarus. Stationing the 45th Armored Brigade between Vilnius and the border with Belarus, where Russian forces are expected to gather in a hypothetical invasion, is the strongest indication yet from NATO that Lithuania's capital will be defended, and the Germans are at the forefront of sending that message. Vilnius has has a population of around 600,000. It's the largest city, not only in Lithuania, but also among all three Baltic states. The 45th Armored Brigade's other base will be in Rukla, a small town in south-central Lithuania and near the country's second-largest city of Kaunas. Rukla is also currently the base for NATO's multinational battle group. As for costs, setting up the brigade, including buying new equipment, has been variously estimated to cost Germany from 6 to 10 billion euros. Operating the brigade is expected to cost 800 million euros each year. Lithuania, for its part, is expected to spend 1 billion euros in building local infrastructure for the brigade, a substantial investment for the small country. There's another significant Allied deployment, and that's the U.S. rotational presence in Lithuania. There's no commitment to permanence, as with the German brigade, but since it started in 2019, there has been a continuous U.S. military presence in the country. As of mid-2025, a 1,200-strong force composed of a mechanized battalion equipped with Abrams tanks and Bradley IFVs, along with an artillery battalion, deployed to Lithuania. The U.S. troops typically do rotational deployments for 9 months. They are based in Camp Herkus in the Pabradė military training area in eastern Lithuania, 50 kilometers or 30 miles northeast of Vilnius, and a mere 10 kilometers or 6 miles to the border with Belarus. Thus, the Americans are currently deployed near the Lithuanian capital to its north, with the Germans to deploy to the south of it. Another notable NATO operation in the region is the Baltic Air Policing Mission. As Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia all have no fighter jets, small groups of Allied combat aircraft based in Šiauliai Air Base in Lithuania and Amari Air Base in Estonia intercept and identify unknown or unauthorized aircraft, such as when Russian combat and reconnaissance aircraft test NATO response to intrusions in its members' airspace. NATO allies take turns on 4-month rotations. With regard to the size of these contingents, in July 2025, for example, 8 Eurofighter jets from Spain and 4 Gripen fighters from Hungary took over the Baltic Air Policing Mission in Šiauliai Air Base. In response to suspected Russian sabotage in the Baltic Sea, NATO launched the Baltic Sentry Initiative, which increases surveillance over critical maritime infrastructure and includes the deployment of naval and air patrols. Lithuania, along with Poland and Latvia, have also accused neighbor Belarus of weaponizing migrants by deliberately encouraging and facilitating their movement toward EU borders. This tactic, seen as retaliation by Belarus against EU sanctions, creates humanitarian crises and political instability and exploits vulnerable people as tools in geopolitical conflict. This is Defense Index. If you find you like the content, please like and subscribe. Now, what is Lithuania doing to defend itself? Lithuania isn't simply relying on its allies. It's building up its own defenses and pushing the limits of its means. Lithuania's military personnel has more than doubled from 8,600 in 2014 to 18,500 in 2024, and which the Lithuanian government in 2025 authorized to increase to 20,000. In January 2025, Lithuania announced the re-establishment of its 1st Mechanized Division as the core of its defense. This will be a mixed army division with a brigade each of heavy or mechanized, medium or motorized, and reserve light or infantry forces, plus combat support units. The 1st Mechanized Division has its headquarters in Rukla. The division is set to be fully operational by 2030. The 1st Mechanized Division's main fighting unit is the Iron Wolf Brigade, which is being converted from an infantry unit into a mechanized infantry brigade. The Iron Wolf Brigade has its headquarters in Rukla, in south-central Lithuania, near the city of Kaunas, Lithuania's second-largest city. The brigade has 4 combat battalions. 1 battalion is based in Rukla. A 2nd battalion, also stationed there, will move to a new base in Rokantiškės village, near the capital Vilnius. Another battalion is based in Alytus, in southeastern Lithuania, by the Suwalki Gap and near the border with Belarus, and 1 in Panevėžys, in northern Lithuania. 2 of the Iron Wolf Brigade's battalions are equipped with the Vilkas, or Wolf in Lithuanian, a version of the Boxer 8-wheeled armored vehicle, and which are armed with a 30mm cannon and a twin-tube Spike LR ATGM launcher. Lithuania has taken delivery of 89 Vilkas infantry fighting vehicles, plus 2 Boxer training vehicles. In April 2025, Lithuania ordered an additional 27 Vilkas IFVs that would also be fitted with engineering and demining equipment. Deliveries are expected between 2027 and 2029. In a deal valued at 950 million euros, making it the country's largest defense contract ever, Lithuania is getting tanks. In December 2024, Lithuania signed an agreement for the delivery of 44 Leopard 2 A8 main battle tanks, the latest version of the Leopard 2 series of tanks used by the German army and several other countries. The Leopard 2 A8 has the L55A1, 120mm cannon, and has upgrades such as the Trophy Active Protection System, a more powerful 1,600 horsepower diesel engine, improved armor, and the latest sensors. It weighs between 65 to 67 metric tons and has a 4-man crew. Delivery is set to start in 2029, with Lithuania's tank battalion to be fully established only by 2034. The battalion, Panevėžys, in northern Lithuania, is due to be converted into the unit that will operate the Leopard 2A8 tanks. The tank battalion will be Lithuania's first and, to date, the only one planned among the 3 Baltic countries. To boost its defense industry, while making this major procurement, Lithuania is negotiating for local assembly of its 44 Leopard 2A8 tanks. In its other major procurement, Lithuania is expected to acquire around 100 CV-90 tracked infantry fighting vehicles. In June 2025, Lithuania, along with Estonia, the Netherlands, Finland, Norway, and Sweden, signed a statement of intent to explore the joint procurement of CV-90 IFVs, with which the Lithuanian army is planning to equip 2 battalions. If or when the joint CV-90 purchase of several NATO allies mentioned earlier pushes through, Lithuania is eyeing the assembly in the country of 30% of this planned multinational procurement that could reportedly reach around 1,000 CV-90s. The Iron Wolf Brigade's artillery battalion, which is based in Rukla, has taken delivery of 21 PZH 2000 self-propelled 155mm howitzers. 16 of these are in active service, and the other 5 for training and spares. With their L52 or 52 caliber long barrel, the self-propelled howitzers can reach targets out to 40 kilometers with standard rounds and up to 56 kilometers or farther with enhanced rounds. The PZH 2000 weighs up to 57 tons and has a 5-man crew. These vehicles were formerly owned by the German army and upgraded for Lithuanian use. So, with the planned tank battalion with Leopard 2A8s, the 2 armored infantry battalions plan to be equipped with CV-90s and an existing artillery battalion with PZH 2000s. The Iron Wolf Mechanized Infantry Brigade is poised to live up to its unit classification as a heavy brigade. But it's going to take a bit of time for all the components to come to fruition. The 1st Mechanized Division's 2nd Brigade is the Žemaitija, or Griffin Brigade. With its units based in western Lithuania, the Griffin Brigade is positioned to defend the country's Baltic coast and, to that region's south, threats from Kaliningrad, although the brigade has also taken part in military exercises in southern Lithuania near the Suwalki Gap. Lithuania's western coastline is only 90 kilometers long, the shortest among the 3 Baltic states, but is quite exposed as it lies right next to Kaliningrad. The Griffin Brigade has 3 combat battalions. Its headquarters and 1 battalion are based in Klaipėda, Lithuania's 3rd largest city, which has the country's only significant seaport. While the Griffin Brigade is positioned to defend Lithuania's Baltic coast, it currently does not have an anti-ship missile unit that can threaten hostile ships offshore. This is a capability that its Baltic neighbors have acquired. Estonia has taken delivery of Israeli-Singaporean Blue Spear truck-mounted anti-ship missile systems with a range of 290 kilometers. Latvia has also ordered truck-mounted Norwegian-made naval strike missiles, or NSM, which have a range of 185 kilometers. These systems also have a land attack capability. So, Lithuania currently lags behind its Baltic neighbors in coastal defense, but maybe it's just a matter of time before it acquires a similar system, funds permitting. Meanwhile, the length of the border between western Lithuania and northern Kaliningrad is divided by the Neman River, or Namunas, and the 360-kilometer part of it that runs through Lithuania is the country's longest river. There's only one bridge connecting northern Kaliningrad to western Lithuania, and that is by the Russian oblast's border city of Sovetsk. Keeping watch over this area is a battalion of the Griffin Brigade based in Torgay, 35 kilometers away. The Griffin Brigade's 3rd Battalion is based in Šiauliai in northern Lithuania, and near the Šiauliai air base that hosts the small contingent of Allied strike fighters that are part of the NATO Baltic air policing mission. The battalions of the Griffin Brigade are currently equipped with rather ancient ex-German M113 APCs and up-armored SUVs. When the Iron Wolf Brigade becomes fully mechanized with tanks and tracked IFVs, it's conceivable that a battalion or two of the Vilkas wheeled IFVs could be handed down to the Griffin Brigade. The Griffin Brigade's artillery battalion is based in Šiauliai, just over 30 kilometers north of Torgay. Lithuania plans to arm this artillery battalion by 2027, with 18 Caesar Mark II truck-mounted self-propelled howitzers ordered from France. The division's 3rd Brigade is the Aukštaitija Brigade, which is a reserve unit of light infantry. During wartime, 2 battalions would form in the capital Vilnius and 2 battalions in Kaunas. These would come from military schools and military training centers, meaning cadets, teaching staff, and other personnel. One of the division-level assets of the 1st Mechanized Division will be 8 HIMARS, or High Mobility Artillery Rocket Systems, ordered in 2022 in a $495 million contract. The package includes 162 rocket pods with nearly 900 rockets and missiles. These include GMLRS rockets with a range of 70 kilometers. The package also includes GMLRS extended range rockets that can reach out to 150 kilometers. If a HIMARS unit operates, for example, somewhere near Rukla, near the city of Kaunas, in south-central Lithuania, it can cover most of the south and east of Lithuania and take aim at targets in eastern Kaliningrad and also border areas of Belarus where Russian forces may be gathered. If a HIMARS unit operates, say, in the western coastal city of Klaipėda, it can take aim with GMLRS ER rockets at targets almost anywhere in Kaliningrad. Lithuania is also acquiring a small number of ATACMS ballistic missiles with 300-kilometer range. With ATACMS, if a HIMARS unit operates near Rukla, it can cover the entirety of Lithuania, take aim at targets anywhere in Kaliningrad, and reach into much of Belarus up to that Russian allies' capital of Minsk. Lithuania and the other Baltic states have also expressed interest in the new PRISM or precision strike missiles that can be fired from HIMARS and which have an extended range of up to 500 kilometers. The country's ground-based air defense weapons are pooled under the Air Defense Battalion of the Lithuanian Air Force. Lithuania has acquired tripod-mounted RBS-70NG systems from Sweden and dual-mount Stingers from the U.S. for short-range air defense. Lithuania is also buying Grom shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles from Poland. Lithuania also ordered the Mobile Short-Range Air Defense, or MSHORAD, from Sweden. Delivery will be in 2025 to 2027. Lithuania ordered a 3rd NASAMS battery from Norway in 2024, with delivery to start in 2028. The medium-range air defense system is equipped with AIM-120 AMRAAM-ER missiles with a range of 40 kilometers. Currently, a key capability gap of Lithuania's military is the lack of a long-range air defense missile system like the U.S. Patriot or the French-Italian SAMP-TNG, which are systems that have a range of up to 150 kilometers and can shoot down ballistic missiles. There's a huge gap in the interception capability between a medium-range air defense system with 40-kilometer range compared with a longer-range system which can reach out to 150 kilometers, nearly 4 times farther. If Lithuania's to-be 3 NASAMS batteries, for example, were deployed to protect its 3 largest cities of Vilnius, Kaunas, and Klaipėda within a 40-kilometer radius, they can only protect a limited area around the cities themselves, in which case, other strategically significant areas would be left without NASAMS-level air defense. such as Alytus near the border with Belarus and Mariampole near eastern Kaliningrad, which are both urban centers near the Suwalki Gap, or in western Lithuania, Tauragė near the border with northern Kaliningrad, and the Šiauliai Air Base further north. If air defense coverage of those areas is intended, more NASAMS batteries will thus have to be acquired, or Lithuania's NATO allies would have to provide these. Long-range surface-to-air missile systems could cover a much larger area. For example, 3 batteries of long-range air defense systems, such as Patriot or SAM-TNG, with their 150-kilometer range, also positioned near Lithuania's 3 largest cities of Vilnius, Kaunas, and Klaipėda, could provide air defense over the entirety of Lithuania with overlapping coverage, as well as threaten the airspace of Kaliningrad and border areas of Belarus. Importantly, too, systems like Patriot and SAM-TNG can shoot down ballistic missiles extensively used by Russia against Ukraine's cities and critical infrastructure, which medium-range systems can't do. These long-range systems are expensive, though, and Lithuania will be hard-pressed to acquire these, although if they can dip into the EU Defense Fund, long-range air defense could be a priority procurement. In the meantime, the Lithuanian land forces are taking steps to establish their own air defense battalion within the 1st Mechanized Division. To date, though, it's unclear how this would affect the Lithuanian Air Forces' Air Defense Battalion, whether one will take over the assets and role of the other, or if the Lithuanian Armed Forces will expand into having 2 different air defense battalions. Lithuania also currently has no dedicated weapons to deal with small UAVs. The increasingly popular Sky Ranger systems from Germany or something similar would enhance Lithuania's defense against unmanned aerial threats such as one-way attack drones, loitering munitions, small bomber drones, and explosive FPV drones. Meanwhile, the Lithuanian Special Operations Forces, or SOP in Lithuanian, is a distinct branch of the Lithuanian Armed Forces. The SOP has a battalion for special reconnaissance and direct action, a special mission unit for counterterrorism and hostage rescue, and a combat divers unit. Lithuania has also been an enthusiastic buyer of the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, or JLTV, the U.S. military successor to the venerable Humvee. Lithuania has ordered a total of 500 JLTVs, making the Baltic country currently the largest non-U.S. operator of the vehicle. Deliveries should be completed by the end of 2025. Lithuania has also been stocking up on man-portable anti-armor weapons, taking delivery of U.S.-made Javelin shoulder-fired missiles for their anti-tank units. With regard to drones, General Raimundas Vaikšnoras, Chief of Defense of Lithuania, stated in July 2025 that the country's armed forces will integrate drones at all organizational levels. As reported by Lithuanian public broadcaster LRT, the Lithuanian defense chief said, quote, "We are starting the systematic integration of unmanned aerial vehicles from the squad level up to the division level. Every infantry squad will have a reconnaissance drone. Higher-level units will be equipped with appropriate reconnaissance and combat drone systems. We are also working to develop long-range combat drones, so we can strike deep behind enemy lines if needed." Unquote. General Vaikšnoras added that specialists with combat experience in Ukraine have been included in their initial training program. Lithuanian military units will also be taught how to operate against drones. In August 2025, the Defense Ministry announced that, in a joint project with the Education Ministry, Lithuania plans to train 22,500 people in operating drones from 2025 to 2028. The aim is to train 15,500 adults and 7,000 children in 9 drone centers that will open throughout Lithuania over the next 3 years. It's a work in progress, but the Lithuanian military is laying the groundwork for their widespread adoption of and adaptation to drones in current and future warfare. Reserves and paramilitary forces also have a crucial role to play in Lithuania's defense. The National Defense Volunteer Forces, or CASP in Lithuanian, is composed of volunteers who train for 30 days each year on territorial defense. Lithuania's parliament, in 2025, approved increasing the number of CASP volunteer soldiers by 500 to a total of 6,800 a year. Conscription in Lithuania was suspended in 2008. However, it was reinstated in 2015. a year after Russia's annexation of Crimea. Currently, each year there are 4,000 conscripts, males aged 18 to 23, who do 9 months of service. This is planned to increase to 5,000. After completing mandatory service, conscripts are assigned to the active Army Reserve for 10 years. The Lithuanian Defense Ministry had previously announced plans to increase the total number of military reservists from 100,000 to 120,000, and the active reserve component, or those who can be quickly mobilized if needed, from 27,000 to 36,000. The number of reservists called up to do refresher training will also increase from 7,000 to 8,000 each year. There's also the Lithuanian Riflemen's Union, a paramilitary organization backed by the government and regulated by law, composed of citizens who dedicate part of their time toward training for defending their homeland. The Lithuanian Riflemen's Union currently has 17,000 members. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have also been coordinating on building the Baltic Defense Line, which would run along the length of their borders with Russia and Belarus. This defensive line would have bunkers behind fences, anti-tank ditches, and dragon's teeth obstacles, minefields, and such that are hoped to slow down an invasion force. On Lithuania's part, their plan for 2025 involves developing 27 of what they call engineer fortification parks along their border with Belarus and Russia's Kaliningrad exclave. Lithuania expects to spend 600 million euros for counter-mobility purposes through 2034. The Baltic Defense Line is linked with Poland's own East Shield program to fortify Polish border areas against threats from hostile forces that could gather in Belarus and Kaliningrad. Lithuania has understandably focused on building up its ground forces, but there are some current and incoming air and naval assets. Lithuania, like its fellow Baltic states, do not have fighter jets, and there are no indications that this is an acquisition objective. So, they are expected to continue to rely on their other NATO allies for air power. The Lithuanian Air Force, though, have been operating 3 C-27J twin-propeller transports with an 11-ton payload capacity since 2012. In what would be its largest aircraft acquisition, the Lithuanian Air Force is looking to procure 3 C-390 Millennium twin-jet transport aircraft from Brazil. With the ability to carry a 26-ton payload, the C-390s would allow Lithuania to significantly upgrade its airlift capability. These could potentially give them some control at running long-range supply missions if necessary with their NATO allies. In a notable procurement, the Lithuanians are set to take delivery of 4 UH-60M Black Hawk helicopters. These will be delivered over 2025 to 2026. Lithuania has the option to order 2 more Black Hawks, for a total of 6. There are also 3 Dauphin light helicopters for search and rescue. The Lithuanian Navy operates a flotilla of small, second-hand vessels, mostly built in the 1980s and acquired by Lithuania in the 2000s to 2010s. These include 4 Fluefisken-class modular patrol boats acquired from Denmark, 3 Hunt-class mine countermeasures vessels from the UK, and a Vidar-class mine layer from Norway. They have also ordered 2 new Jehu-class landing craft, which are capable of speeds up to 35 knots, from Finland. Lithuania will use these as fast multi-purpose attack craft. These boats will be armed with Israeli-made Spike NLAWS missiles that have a range of up to 32 kilometers. Lithuania is considering a design proposal for a future class of patrol vessels called the Perkūnas, or Thunder, that would be 88 meters, or nearly 290 feet long, and with a crew of 30 to 60. The Perkūnas class is envisioned to be a versatile ship with a spacious, adaptable mission bay that will allow it to perform various roles such as patrol, mine laying, mine countermeasures, anti-submarine warfare, and others. When NATO members famously agreed in 2014 to spend the equivalent of 2% of their GDP on defense by 2024, Lithuania reached the 2% threshold in 2019. In their 2025 summit in The Hague in the Netherlands, NATO allies, with the exception of Spain, agreed to increase defense spending to a total of 5% by 2035.
We can defend ourselves now, but there is a big risk in 3, 5, 7 years from now without the extra spending.
This is split between 3.5% for core defense spending, as defined by the alliance, which is still a significant increase over their previous 2% commitment. The other 1.5% is for things like infrastructure, cybersecurity, and really anything labeled defense-related. Lithuania ain't waiting 10 years. In 2025, Lithuania's defense budget should reach 3.9% of its GDP, thus already exceeding the new 3.5% NATO core defense spending commitment. Lithuania's defense budget in 2025 is set at 2.5 billion euros. Lithuania expects to increase defense spending by 12 billion euros between 2026 and 2030. This will reach 5.2% of GDP in 2026 and 6% by 2030. It hopes to get some help from the European Union to achieve this. A Lithuanian member of the European Parliament estimates that Lithuania could receive around 3 billion euros from the EU's planned 150 billion euro fund to support joint procurement under the Readiness 2030 initiative. However, the expectation is still that Lithuania will have to mainly rely on its own tax revenues, along with borrowing, possibly from new EU loan mechanisms. So, is Lithuania and its NATO allies doing enough to defend this crucial part of the alliance's eastern flank? Let's look at some scenarios. First, defending that infamous Suwalki Gap. The threats to this highly contentious real estate in southern Lithuania come from two directions: from the southeast, from the border with Belarus, and to the west, from Kaliningrad. Any large buildup of Russian forces inside Belarus, even if billed as exercises as they were in the buildup to the invasion of Ukraine, would be closely monitored. This should allow NATO some time to send in reinforcements to Lithuania and other Baltic countries and Poland if there is an imminent threat. The German-led 45th Armored Brigade, that will mainly be based just south of Vilnius, is well positioned to defend the capital, which is perilously close to the border with Belarus. Currently, an American armored or mechanized battalion backed by an artillery battalion that comprised the U.S. rotational presence in Lithuania is also based near Vilnius, to its north. Lithuania's premier fighting unit, the Iron Wolf Brigade, is also moving a battalion to a new base in front of Vilnius. Thus, even in peacetime, NATO forces are being positioned to defend the capital. The planned tank battalion to be based in Panevėžys, in northern Lithuania, would presumably be sent down south, where they're needed anywhere along the Suwalki Gap to near Vilnius. The Iron Wolf Brigade's battalions, along with the NATO battle group, all based in Rukla near Kaunas in south-central Lithuania, keep watch over the exit via eastern Kaliningrad. If possible, they might be able to send reinforcements further south to the Iron Wolf Brigade's lone battalion in Alytus, which guards that southeastern corner of Lithuania from any attack crossing from Belarus. Lithuania and its NATO allies have also held military exercises along the Suwalki Gap near the border with Belarus, in areas near Alytus. The 1st Mechanized Division's Reserve Aukštaityje Brigade, as currently configured, would be a mustering of cadets and military teaching staff in Vilnius and Kaunas, as light infantry in case of war. In an all-hands-on-deck crisis situation, it's expected that in a hypothetical war, or the imminent threat of it, Lithuania would turn to the several thousand CASP volunteers, the tens of thousands in the active reserve component, and, ultimately, the 100,000 other military reservists, as well as call upon the paramilitary Lithuanian Riflemen's Union to support territorial defense throughout Lithuania. The hope is that Lithuanian, German, and other NATO forces would be able to hold on until further Allied help arrives. This should also give time for not only the might of U.S. military power, but also the collectively considerable air power of several European air forces, along with their mechanized reinforcements to be brought to bear against hostile forces. A U.S. turn toward isolationism poses serious risks for European defense. The United States has been central to NATO's deterrence, providing military presence, intelligence, and the necessary enablers in a hypothetical war. It's the difference between the might of the U.S. Air Force and also the U.S. Navy, and the U.S. Army's powerful reinforcements of armored divisions, coming to the aid of Europe, or those formidable forces being absent. Given the new unfamiliar uncertainty with America coming to their aid, the countries of Europe must seriously commit to strengthening their own capabilities for collective defense. However, the death of 4 U.S. soldiers in a tragic training accident in Lithuania in early 2025 was a stark and poignant reminder that, for now at least, American troops stand shoulder to shoulder with their NATO allies in Europe. Germany has shown its commitment to Lithuania's defense with the permanent stationing of a brigade. Also, Germany, which is Europe's largest economy and third largest in the world after only the US and China, is embarking upon a major rearmament program that would allow it to send significant reinforcements, if such plans come to fruition in the future. And there are also several other NATO allies that stand ready to reinforce the Baltic States. But there's one NATO ally that's both in the immediate area and is building up significant military power, and that's Lithuania's historically intertwined neighbor, Poland. Lithuania and Poland have come to a bilateral agreement under what's called the Orsha Plan for contingencies in defending their territories, particularly the Suwalki Gap. Poland keeps watch over southern Kaliningrad, with which it shares a border. There is the Polish Army's 16th Mechanized Division south of the Russian exclave. Its 15th Mechanized Brigade, in particular, has taken part in exercises with Lithuania and other NATO allies, where it reinforces the Suwalki Gap. Poland is building up toward having 6 well-equipped army divisions and is on a massive military equipment buying spree. Moreover, also based in Poland is a US-led NATO multinational brigade and the command centers for NATO divisions in the alliance's eastern flank. Scenarios for defending against Russian aggression have mainly focused on the Suwalki Gap and in protecting the capital Vilnius. But Lithuania must also pay attention to its west. It would be great if the Griffin Brigade in western Lithuania could become as well equipped as the Iron Wolf Brigade. Or the Griffin Brigade could also be disproportionately attached with more artillery to stop river crossings, amphibious landings, or any Russian advance out of northern Kaliningrad. The Griffin Brigade, or a separate coastal defense unit, must also be equipped with anti-ship missile systems to threaten hostile ships offshore, which is a capability even its fellow Baltic states are acquiring. In western Lithuania, there's neither a German armored brigade nearby, and Polish forces are further down south. Allied forces further north in Latvia and Estonia might also themselves be engaged if Russia attacks along a wide front. Thus, ultimately, the Griffin Brigade must be robust enough to hold on, possibly until reinforcements arrive or Kaliningrad is neutralized as a threat. At the same time, another area distant from the concentration of NATO forces in southern Lithuania is the northeastern part of the country. It will have to hope that its northern neighbor Latvia and Allied forces stationed there can hold on if it too is attacked, so as to prevent Allied forces in Lithuania being also threatened from the north. If not, the only regular army unit there is the battalion based in Panevėžys in northern Lithuania. The accession into NATO of Finland and Sweden in 2023 and 2024, respectively, is seen to provide new avenues for supporting the Baltic states via the Baltic Sea, as it has supposedly turned into a so-called NATO lake. However, maritime supply lines would remain at risk as long as the heavy Russian military presence in Kaliningrad has the capability to attack vessels or aircraft making use of the Baltic Sea. NATO control of the Suwalki Gap would have the effect of making it practically impossible for Russia to resupply its exclave. If, during a war, Kaliningrad could be neutralized as a military threat, even without it being invaded, that would in turn significantly reduce the risk for NATO reinforcements via the Baltic Sea. Beyond the forces stationed in the Baltic republics themselves, along with those in nearby allied countries, a much more massive reaction force from NATO is designed to be available with the Allied Reaction Force, or ARF, a component of the NATO force model. This is an entirely different, greater level of Allied response that entails the deployment of up to 300,000 Allied troops, with a core element of 40,000 high-readiness troops. These would also come with air and naval assets. Lithuania's strategic location truly makes it a key country in NATO's eastern flank, particularly in northeastern Europe. Toward that end, NATO is significantly strengthening its presence in the Baltic region, with Germany particularly committed to Lithuania's defense. Lithuania is also no mere host for its allies, as the country itself is taking major steps to build up its armed forces and pushing the limits of its means. The hope is that these ongoing efforts by Lithuania and that of its NATO allies will be sufficient to deter and, if necessary, defend it from aggression. So, that's it for now. If you want to see more content about defense issues, yes, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you and see you in the other videos here on Defense Index.